Man, guys, I got to tell you, we just got back from the Keys. My wife and I were invited by Mike and Rochelle and Craig and Eva to go down to Craig and Eva's place in Islamorada and spend a few days with them. We left out Thursday afternoon, got down there, did some snapper fishing. Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, dolphin fishing for some mahi and all. And we just absolutely tore the fish up. I got to tell you, I learned a lot in a couple days. Craig and Mike are a great team duo on that boat. Craig's knowledge, I learned so much from him. It was incredible, you know, the way he worked his electronics, the way he worked his boat, and the way he had a sense of just where and what to do and to put us on those fish. Craig's got a beautiful boat. He's got a 37 Freeman, just absolutely gorgeous. And sitting there riding shotgun with him was pure joy. You know, if you know me, I love my electronics. I'm a guru. I love technology. I love the edge. You know, I tell people all the time that I fish when I'm not fishing because I sit in my recliner or at bed and I'm looking at new fishing spots and tides and wind and all those things almost too much. You know, I get so caught up in that sometimes. If I'm sitting there in that Freeman, I got dual 24-inch monitors sitting there looking with Craig, with the radar, you know, marking out sets of birds. We're looking at temps, we're looking at rips. You know, we did all of that. Craig, you know, went out and he knew what he was doing. He was tuned into the electronics. He had, you know, the radar screen up, you know, and we're hitting birds in different sets. We're looking at rip. You know, we come up on some birds and they're just going crazy. But there was one thing that Craig taught me that was pretty amazing. We caught fish everywhere that we found this. And it had to do with the temperature. So that first day we're going along there and Craig looks at me and says, "Man, did you feel that?" I said, "What?" He goes, "That little bit of cool temp on your legs." He goes, "It's fixing to get good." And he asked me, and I looked at him, and I nodded, and thankfully I had my glasses on so he couldn't see the blank stare on my face when he's asking me if I felt cool air when it's 90+ degrees out there. But sure enough, that water temperature got just right, and the fish were there in that zone, and we started picking up fish. And we did that a couple different times that day. We picked up fish on birds, we picked up fish on weeds, but when we got into that right temperature zone, it was game on. That second day we decided to go out. My wife stayed back with the girls there and they went to town in Islamorada and did girl things. And Craig, Mike, and myself went, and Craig had a game plan in mind, and it was just full send.
We made it to the Flemish Cap, 45 miles offshore.
And we run 40+ miles out there. And yes, you know, everybody talks about how far out were you? What was the depth? You know, did you find any birds? Did you find any debris? But when we pulled up, guess what? It all lined up.
I don't know.
You got a lot of choices here.
Yeah, I hear you. I got my glasses on though.
There were birds, there was weeds, and that temp was in the zone, and it was pure chaos. We started catching fish within a minute, 2 minutes of putting baits out, and then it was just pure pandemonium. At one time I looked around and I think we had 5 or 6 rods with fish on, stuck in the rod holders, and me and Mike and Craig are still catching fish and started having to put them in the box. And it was all about that temperature, and it was less than 1 degree, less than 1 degree. And that just showed me how much in tune Craig was with what's going on. He could feel it before that screen popped up there and showed us that temperature drop. And everywhere it dropped, we caught fish. You know, on the way home and the last couple of days as I've reflected on that, it's brought to mind 1 Kings 19 where Elijah, you know, he's kind of running and he's tucked away in a cave, scared they're going to get him. The Lord tells him to go out and stand before him, and, you know, here comes a mighty wind. But God wasn't in it. And here comes, you know, fire, and God wasn't in it. And then God had a still small voice, a whisper, the Bible says. Elijah heard it. I'd always read that wrong and thought that Elijah was out there experiencing the wind and the fire, you know, and God's not there. I'm like, well, I don't understand it. But at this time when I read it, it said that he heard God in that small whisper. And that's when he got up and went outside the cave at that time. You know, we get so busy in our lives, and we fill our lives with, all kinds of devotionals. We fill our lives with all kinds of podcasts. We fill our lives watching YouTube preachers and doing all these things to try to, experience and gain knowledge and see God and know what He's doing. And a lot of times with God, it's in those quiet times that we get with Him in that still small voice, just like Craig trusting his instincts, and he just knew slight difference in that temperature change made all the difference in the fish that we caught. That was a good lesson for me, to take and just slow down. Don't get caught up in the electronics and the hustle and bustle of life, but instead just take the time to get away, just like Jesus did. Jesus would get away and retreat to the feet of the Father when everybody else was around Him and crowded around, and He just got there by Himself and He heard His own Father's still small voice. I encourage you to do the same, just like I'm going to make it more of a dedicated part of my life. God bless you guys.